You got the floor, Megan.
Awesome. I'm just going to share the agenda just again so you can see the questions that we're talking about. Sorry, it got bigger. But so we're going to dive into this next icebreaker, talking about the insurrection of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. So we really want to talk about these two issues. So first off, your emotions, reactions, thoughts on the Capitol insurrection. And then we obviously had an inauguration today. I don't know if any of you were able to watch it, but if the next question is, have any of your emotions changed after the inauguration this morning? And if so, or if not, why?
Anybody want to jump in? You can drop the agenda down. Anybody.
I'll go first.
Go ahead. That's a hot topic. I know everybody waiting for it. Go ahead. Who said they'll go first? Go. The floor is yours.
No, I mean, if we're going back to the Capitol, it's a representation of what this country is founded upon. Like today with the inauguration, you had someone sing a song that emphasized indigenous erasure of the land. Like we have ownership of the land and this idea of dominance. And I think that's what this country is rooted in. Like the concept of whiteness and white supremacy is rooted in dominance.
Facts. My bad. I ad-lib in Zoom meetings. That's why I'm unmuted. You know, I'm going to bring some liveness to this. Facts. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's what we're seeing, and everyone calling them a mob. That's terrorism. That's insurrection. That's a coup. But folks are calling them a mob. And instead of analyzing how protesters, Black Lives Matter protesters, were fighting for their life and why we have things put into place, it's institutionalized. All of this is institutionalized. It's encouraged by this institution that we uphold. And that's what we saw today. I don't think that this inauguration is a change for the country. It's not. It's not. Because even with Obama, you had all these protests for Trayvon Martin and nothing happened. We got body cams, but we can't even use the evidence.
That's facts. That's facts.
So what's going to change?
Nothing.
Not much has changed since MLK. Nothing has changed since MLK. And they love to pacify him.
So go ahead, jump in.
Oh, I want to jump in. Hold up. So my reactions to the whole Capitol, like I truly wasn't surprised. I can't say that I was, just watching the whole thing go down. But what
I think white people were surprised, but go ahead, John.
Yeah, like my 100% honest reaction after it happened was, it was like this expectation for Black people to mourn who died, like the terrorists that died at the Capitol. And when we didn't mourn, we were made to look like the bad guys. Like we were made to look like, oh, like you're not mourning people, like American people. They're terrorists. Plain and simple. Y'all just so quick to blame us and put us into something we have nothing to do with. We stayed out of it. I remember going on Twitter and everybody being like, Black people stay out of this. Like, this isn't our place. Like, this isn't, this doesn't involve us.
That's correct.
So that was my reaction. And then with the inauguration today, I'm just waiting for those who, because I saw one of my friends tweet this actually, and she was just talking about how, with this inauguration today, it doesn't change anything. Like nothing's changed. Racism isn't going to go away once they're sworn in. And I just want to see the different people who are going to stop, with their performative act really are, and just be like, just sit there and stop reposting stuff, stop talking about Black Lives Matter because, they think that since Biden and Kamala are in office, they, racism went away. But that's my honest reaction.
Go ahead. You got to jump in. Don't raise your hand like we in the third grade. Come on, jump in here, Paris.
Well, I would actually like to challenge the idea that Black people, that's not our battle. So first, I would like to add a little bit of context because I'm from DC. I live in
Shout
this.
out DC. I'm from DC
I'm
too.
from
Yeah.
Southeast. You already know.
Yeah.
So,
Southside. Yeah.
um, for months, the Proud Boys have been terrorizing DC. Literally, have been terrorizing the city. We've had several
Down on the
Trump
south side.
marches, and they destroyed Black churches on Black Lives Matter Plaza. They were like murals and different paintings and stuff that people had posted. They tear them down. They were assaulting Black Lives Matter protests. So for months, DC residents were getting terrorized by white supremacists, and literally MPD did nothing about it. If anything, they joined in on terrorizing the Black residents who are literally fighting for their lives. So the whole idea that Black people is not really our place. I mean, in theory, with them storming the Capitol, it's like, who cares about them storming the Capitol? For me, I wasn't surprised because I've seen how violent they've been for months. It's the notion of we cannot be sleep because it's like they were poking a bear. They already came to the city once, nothing happened. They came to the city again, nothing happened. The third time they stormed the Capitol and
Yeah.
everybody made it out alive. Like,
Yeah.
I'm from DC. Like, Capitol Police, they don't even
Facts.
allow you to walk on the street a certain
Facts.
way. I've been in the
Yes.
Capitol building and I literally almost got terrorized because I had a pin on. So if they were able to get through all of that, what makes you think they're not going to try something in our community, the Black community, if they were able to get off scathed free? So when all of this happened, I wasn't really surprised because I've already seen the violence that has occurred in my city. And it literally took for legislators to feel threatened, even though it was the president who incited the violence for people to have this uproar and concern. And with the inauguration, honestly, I don't feel any better. If anything, I feel a little more weary because oftentimes when Democratic presidents and Democratic legislators, and we have the House, we have the Senate, it becomes really hard for organizers on the ground to organize because now everybody want to be in this post-racial society. We're back to America. Everything is
Yeah.
equal again. And I'm like, are y'all serious? You know how many people,
Yeah.
Black and brown people, are dying of COVID? Not because, oh, we have these health conditions. It's literally because we don't have access to resources in our community. And you're telling me a president who is not for Medicare for all, I'm supposed to be joyous and happy and excited. It's like, what structural change is going to happen with this election? That is what I'm looking for. And I'm already seeing people try to dismiss people that have valid critiques of the president and the vice president. So that's how I feel about it.
All right.
I just kind of wanted to say, what happened on the 6th to me was not surprising. When I heard about it and saw about it, I wasn't really surprised at all. But honestly, my main thought was, if it was a bunch of Black people down there, they'd already have body bags out. And that's really the only thing that I could focus on. To be very honest, I'm a US citizen, this is my country, and, so be it. But the fact that it was happening down at the Capitol really had no effect on me, besides the fact that if this was a few months back and they were Black, they'd be dead. And I couldn't
We
get
got
away
the
from
footage.
right. And I couldn't get away from that feeling alone. The fact that going back to what Queen said, that's what this country was built on. So I'm not surprised, whether it happened now or later. But for me, it was just the fact that I didn't want to see a bunch of white people die that day. No, I didn't. But I would more so not have wanted to see all of the Black people that did die or get incarcerated or were attacked and abused and harassed by police when they were peacefully protesting, just to say, I'm a human and I don't want to die because of the way that I look. So everything that happened on the 6th to me was beneath the Capitol. That's fine. It happened at the Capitol. That's one thing. But for me, it was the fact that it can happen at such a secured place. I'm from Montgomery County, not too far from DC. You can't touch that
DMV.
Capitol.
Yeah. You
You can't touch the Capitol. And the fact that these white people were able to just kind of waltz on in with the help of authorities was quite disgusting, because I know if it was people who looked like me or my father or my mother or my children, they would have been dead.
Now, Kat, when you say these white people, do you mean the white people in this group?
No, I mean these white people, the white people who were there. Those,
I know.
the one there. And as far as the inauguration today, for me, it's not really a sign of change. For me, it's something that we have to go through every 4 years. And I think that it's absolutely wonderful. We have a female vice president who is a minority. And if anything, for me, it just gives people hope and courage that, okay, someone of color is able to obtain certain positions that they once weren't able to. But as far as eliminating the social injustice, I don't think that that's like a stamp on it.
I think, Tom, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things to say, and John, jump in if I go too high level or get too many platitudes.
Y'all got the floor. This is community
Okay.
dialogue. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Right. So I got to tell you, I was surprised by the Capitol riots and insurrection, and I mean, there was a piece of me that was like, well, that could happen, but I got to tell you, when I saw those people busting through the windows, I was like, I just can't believe this happened. And I mentioned last night at the council meeting that watching those events unfold, and the mayor and I were sort of texting back and forth as it was happening, and it brought on a real sense of despair for me. And you know, I want to mention as I'm saying this, that what I'm struck by is that sense of despair is new for me, right? But I hear on this call a lot of young people who carry that despair with them on a daily basis, and I'm told about that regularly as I have conversations with people and I go to different lectures or trainings. But it's another thing to hear it in the voices of people. So I do want to just I want to come back to that maybe later, but what got me out of, because I was kind of wondering, like, why am I doing any of this council business, right? Like, why is this important, or why am I even bothering, putting in all this time to do it when, people can just go and bust out your windows, right? Or bust out the windows of the Capitol. And I sort of sat with that for a little bit and thought about, my interactions since I've been on the council and my interactions in our community generally. And while we disagree, Ellsworth Tolliver and I, Councilman Tolliver and I recently disagreed about the Human Rights Commission, but we talked about it. We fought about it a little bit. We arrived at compromise. My point is to say that there was dialogue, and we came together, and whenever I pick up the phone and call someone, they pick up the phone and talk to me and explain things. Mr. Queen does that with me regularly, and on and on. And I look at the community and I say, okay, that happened, but my constituents are always, they may disagree with me, they may have a point of view, but they are always so civil and kind and bring their points of view to me sternly in some cases, but they never discount other people's points of view. And I would just sort of end this by saying that, as we sit with that despair that some of the young people on this call have, and that I had recently and experienced really for the first time, the institutions are on this call, right? Like, we've got Washington College, we've got community leaders, we've got the town council. I'd love to see more people from the county. We've got people from the media here, and so this is where it's going to happen, right? We're going to talk. We're going to disagree, and I will be the first one to say, because there's probably some people rolling their eyes on this as I talk. I have my own troubled history, with the Black Lives Matter vote and the Human Rights Commission. People would disagree with how I handled that, and I get it, and I'm learning day by day, and I'm working hard to bring different points of view and internalize different points of view to my chair. But I'm not perfect. So anyway, that's what I had to say about the riot. And
All right, before I want to say this, I'm gonna give Megan the floor or MJ the floor. But is anyone having issues with the hand raise, or we need to tell you what a hand raise is?
Yeah, where is
Anyone?
It's in the reactions button. If you're on a desktop, put the
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
Go ahead, MJ. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I want to start with my feelings about the inauguration because I don't really have any. How many inaugurations have we had and what have they done for the Black community? My life doesn't really need to change. I'm a white American. I'm living a pretty good life right now. But I have friends and family and loved ones that are not. And I would love to be excited about it. I would love to be like, yes. And I'm happy that it's not what it could have been, but I'm not excited. I'm not thrilled. It's not really, to me, systemically, it's not going to do anything. So I'm not emotional about it in any way. As far as the 6th, I was not surprised in any way, not just because of the last 4 years and the last couple of months, but when my stepfather moved in with us, I was living in Crumpton at the time. And for those of you who don't know, my stepfather's Black. The day after he moved in with us, there was a chapter of the KKK in Millington, and they put a burning cross on our front lawn. So I can't really say that I was surprised.
What year was this? Sorry to interrupt. What year was this?
It was 2012.
2012. So it wasn't 1400, 1800.
No, this was
okay.
2012. I didn't even know that there was a chapter. That's how I found out that there was a chapter of the KKK, because I came home from school to a burning cross on my lawn. So I was not surprised. I have been waiting for this because from that day, I saw from very close what my stepfather and my friends and my family go through every single day. And I always thought, oh, I live in a small town, everyone's nice. Half of my family makes up Kent County. I have a really big family. I'm related to everybody. And so everybody's nice to me. Everybody knows me. And I just kind of figured that's how it was for everybody because it's Kent County and it's Queen Anne's County. And I mean, I knew that this stuff existed. I wasn't blind to it, but I didn't know how bad it was right here. And once you start seeing it in your backyard and you start seeing it all around you and in your neighbors and in your family members, you start seeing it everywhere and you start realizing that it's everywhere. And from that day, I was waiting for something like, I thought it was going to happen when Obama got elected, to be completely honest with you. I wasn't surprised, but I was furious for many reasons. The first one being that 6 months ago, my friends and family and loved ones were getting beaten in the streets for legally protesting a man getting murdered. And the Proud Boys, I never heard anyone refer to them as a mob. That's what they were. They were terrorists, a mob of terrorists. But the Proud Boys is what I heard everyone call them, got to go to the Capitol and ransack it. My brother is a Marine. He was blown up in Afghanistan protecting this country. When I visited him in the hospital, I couldn't go in with a plastic knife, but you can go into the Capitol and ransack it. I was furious. That's how I felt about it. I was furious. And that's how I still am about it. There have been no repercussions.
Am I the only one that found that funny January 6th? Nobody else thought it was a comedy show? Well, since I got the floor, first,
I did think it was a little bit.
Yeah, I
watching
laughed.
it.
I laughed a little bit.
That's what I was wondering. Why would you wear what they were wearing?
It's hilarious because to Jonah
and getting beating the police up for me, like that was the funny part.
Oh, that I loved.
Why are they dressing in all them costumes? Like, I don't get that part. Like,
I think they're fulfilling their fantasy because they want to have like a revolution. Like it's
they had a
1776.
revolution. It was the Civil War, then it was when they fought. Here's the thing about January 6th.
What do they need a revolution? What do white people need a revolution for?
White people will fight to fight. Right now in America, white people are fighting whites. To Jonah's point, it looked like blacks aren't involved or it's not our fight. Well, we've been conditioned that when the master fight the master, you go do your work and you stay out the way or they might kill you. There's no way in American society, I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., like Paris is, like Cat is. I've never seen people congregate on the Capitol steps. I've never seen it.
You can't.
I've never seen it.
I don't think it's allowed.
And they want us to mourn because someone got murdered trying to climb to a glass window to do God knows what to people who represent. At the end of the day, if I feel like America has a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, there's still a respect factor that I think we watch a certain segment of society kind of blemish, kind of take advantage of that. There's no way as president, because a lot of people think Trump is the reason. Trump didn't start racism. Trump just magnified it and put it on our table to all see and digest right now. He's no different from anyone else who does the things he does. When you're rich and you're white, you can talk and say and do what you want. When you're poor and you're white, you can do what you want. Hence by how many people could break into the Capitol and not get handcuffed, tased, pepper sprayed, murdered. It's ridiculous. And then everyone want to have this big grandstand on the inauguration today, like it's a kumbaya moment because you got a young Black girl giving poetry. You got Michelle Obama weekend vice president. None of that stuff means nothing when you're suffering every day. Yes, it's good for symbolism, but it's changing nothing. I can't be on here supporting things that, not on here, but in life supporting things that makes other people feel good when I'm the victim on that end. January 6th was exactly what America does when America does not get what they want. Their history has shown this since their inception when they flew or flee from Great Britain. We had a civil war in this country. One side lost, one side won. But the losing side is still able to have an effect on our community today. We see the flags, we see the Proud Boy flags, the Confederate flags. America is, I cuss, so excuse me if we got to bleep this out later. They bullshit. They don't care about nothing else but what they care about, and that's themselves. So that's how I feel about it. Joe Biden ain't no better than the last 45 presidents that served before him. He will have to show me something.
And I just want to say about the woman who got shot, obviously, I don't want anybody to get shot and hurt. However, it is a felony to cross state lines with the intent to commit terrorism, which she did. I think she was from like Alabama or something.
California.
California. So I want to know where everyone was that was making the excuse that George Floyd passed off a fake check. Where were they with her when they were telling us to mourn her? Where were they? She was a felon. In their minds, that makes it okay for the police to kill you. Where were they? I didn't hear everyone was like, oh my God, she got shot. That's so terrible. She was a criminal.
I'm going to call on somebody because I want to hear their voice. Liv.
Well, I mean, now I feel really intimidated because everyone's speaking such good points. For me, the word that keeps popping straight into my mind on January 6th and today is torn. I mean, for me personally, I know that racism did not start with Trump. I know that he did bring it into the mainstream and creates this justified reason for anyone to speak their mind for this case, for very, very not good reasons. Can't talk today. But for me, I know, again, actions speak louder than words. I mean, I'm waiting to see what this new administration will do. I'm hopeful, but it's hard to be that way. It really is, especially when you see people just, again, breaking into a building that's supposed to stand for basic democratic principles, and then watching human beings just feel like they're justifying like their own revolution. It's like saying that seeing men's rights protests. Men's rights is nothing, especially when you see people who have been marginalized and criminalized for so long, who should have the opportunity to speak their minds freely without fear that their lives may end right on that street that they are protesting on. And it's just frustrating to see. I'm hopeful, but it's hard to feel hopeful. It really is.
I like it. Thank you, Liz. Thank you very much. I'm still name calling. Elizabeth Lilly.
I was not in the least bit surprised on January 6th. I was absolutely appalled. I was furious, frustrated. It logically makes sense to me, knowing like systemic injustices and racism, why that was able to happen, but there was still like that like inner disconnect of why. I don't even know, like just I guess the existential why of just like why all of this has to be the way that it is. And I know saying this from a place of privilege is probably incredibly empty, and I can't even begin to adequately empathize with individuals who have to deal with such questions on a daily basis, but it was incredibly infuriating. At the same time, like, I do want to be hopeful, and I recognize that my privilege enables me to be hopeful and to, I don't know, with the inauguration, hope that at least we have, I don't know, like, we're not consistently moving backwards. I don't know if that makes any sense, but to have a completely blue White House, Senate, and House makes me hopeful that we won't constantly be facing systemic barriers, though I understand that it's not going to be just fix everything to be completely democratic. Like, obviously, it's not going to do anything. We still have to hold our elected officials accountable. But I'm like clinging to hope at this point that this can be a turning point, that we can make systemic changes, because I truly believe that while those interpersonal connections are so important, systemic things I think are going to make that bigger change. And so I think just, again, it's another reminder for me that I have the privilege to be hopeful, so I need to act on that hope. I need to make sure that I am pushing for these things, continuously educating myself, interacting with others, encouraging others, mobilizing others, and I don't know, hopefully like keep clinging to that hope so that it can fuel me and that I can hopefully like be that fuel for other people. So I guess it's like trying to keep optimism. It's kind of where I'm at.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Megan. Facilitator has the floor.
Genuinely actually was. Can you hear me?
It's iffy.
We can't hear you at all right now.
No.
You like lukewarm. Keep coming. Come on. Give us
Okay,
something else.
if I talk maybe closer to my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I actually genuinely was surprised by the Capitol riots. And I immediately thought of this when Paris was talking about how the Capitol Police had a big problem with her pin. I have been into the Capitol before. I had a meeting with a senator once, and I got lost in the underground tunnels, and I asked a Capitol officer to help me, and he helped me. And like that right there, the fact that I literally was wandering around in the Capitol tunnels, which is allowed, but like that I was wandering around the Capitol tunnels and got help from an officer while Paris was being antagonized because of a pin, like that right there goes to like that, like right there in that moment, like
Look at Paris'
like,
face, y'all. Look at her face, y'all. But go ahead, Megan. Look at Paris' face, y'all. But go ahead, Megan.
Like, I was surprised because I just didn't see that, and then now just it was just hearing Paris say that, I was like, oh wow, wait, Megan, take a second back and look at that. But I also find myself like with what Liv was saying, I want to be hopeful. I am a very optimistic person typically, so I really want to be hopeful. But it is only because of my privilege as a white woman that I'm able to be hopeful that we just inaugurated, a new president, that we're now democratic. But So yeah, I want to be hopeful, but hearing a lot of my peers talk about their lack of hope because of the color of their skin, that has been really, it's been very awakening. So thank you for sharing that. But I just wanted to say, I hope that we can have some type of hope for the future. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. Sorry.
Anybody else want to dive in that hasn't spoken yet?
Elena's been waiting for a while, so I'll let her go. Go ahead.
You got to jump in here, Elena. Come on, jump in.
Me? Okay. So I think for me there are three things that really kind of struck me with this event, the inauguration and also the riot. And I think with the riot, as someone who is always seeing the United States as an empire, was for me kind of that, oh yeah, of course, I mean, you go to other countries and tell them, how to rule themselves, but now you're easier to take than any other third world country, that you are trying to govern. So in that way, as many of you, that it was not surprising, because for me, it really show how weak the narrative is. The United States really resides on this narrative of completely exceptionalism, of endurance and resilience. And today we heard a lot about that inauguration, right? And I also have to struggle this when I'm teaching my kid his own history, because on the one side, I want him to really believe that he is from a culture that has both, slavery and, the civil rights movement, right? That has created genocide and, empowerment. But it's a tough task, when you really want to teach a kid how hard the history is. So for me, that was the insurrection. It was just showing me how fragile that narrative is of the American exceptionalism. And today, especially again, as a Mexican, we finally experienced democracy in Mexico 2 years ago, when we finally, our votes were counted, okay? We have had a dictatorship of a party for almost 72 years. And the last 2 years, we actually felt that we voted and that the vote mattered. And I think this is for for the people who really felt very bad about, Biden. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's an old white guy, and it's the mainstream Democrats. I will say it's more like a light Republican than a deep Democrat.
I agree with that.
But this is my thought, especially when you see the bigger picture and not just the internal politics of the bipartisan relationship. It is better for the U.S. to have someone who's going to be advocating even slightly for social politics than having a pro-Hitler guy that is going to bring us back into the deep hole of despair. You have no idea how stressful have been these 4 years for us as immigrants, and how stressful have been as women, as professors, like everything, right? But if I have like contrasting both the Mexican experience and the American experience, no one has worked harder on politics since Trump came to effect. Like the moment that Trump went and took his inauguration, people went to the streets. People started to work on organize it. And that's the problem with Obama. We had Obama and we were like, it's fine. Black president, we're good.
He gave us nothing.
And he gave us nothing. I mean, he was a moderate Democrat, kind of leaning into the very, a very fancy, nice Republican. Okay. But this is my thing. We cannot let that happen, right? So it's beyond for me hopefulness or It's right now, we just need to keep on working. Like, they really have to work for us. And if they forget about it, we are going to remind them that they need to work for us. And if they don't, we have to go beyond the bipartisan that, oh, if we don't, we're gonna go to Republican. No, if you don't work, if you're not a civil servant, if you're not really working on behalf of the people who elected you, we are gonna remind you, and we're gonna force you to do it. I mean, that lack of accountability in civil service, it's problematic. And I think that's when today with the inauguration, I saw the same narrative of American exceptionalism. But my hope is put them to task, and that's when I think we shouldn't go like Obama and say, that's it, Democrats are in power. We need to remind Democrats what they are about to do.
Okay.
And just to leap in on what Elena is saying, which was probably my point too, is that I think that we're in a position to hold, at least I feel like I'm in a position, and I hope everyone else feels like we're in more of a position to hold our elected officials accountable because we're their electorate, right? So a Trump politician is never going to care what I think about what they're doing, and they're never going to change their ways because because I've organized something or because there's a big push. But ideally, the Democratic Party, because I don't know if everyone is here, but in general, we are their electorate. I think we have more of a voice. And I also recognize, having listened to everyone and learned so much, that one of the things is that this is also, and Jonna, we've talked about this before too, it's partially because of who I am as a white person that I can say that, and I get that. But at the same time, I do think that, as Elena's saying, we can't be complacent. And I think that's also a white privilege thing, right? Because it's like, oh, Obama's in power, I don't have to worry about this anymore, I'm good, right? But there are a lot of other people struggling, but there's the blinders on as white people.
Okay, thank you. So, in closing, by show of hands, let me ask this, because we spoke about it nationally. Do you think if it was some more, to Elena's point, action-based solutions to this, things could change? By show of hands. All right. Perfect segue. My lovely co-host, Megan, can you bring up the agenda again, please? So what we're about to do, because the icebreakers, now, before I go into that, we're about to enter into the community dialogue, the real reason we're here today, to discuss some topics as it pertains to Chestertown. The first topic we're going to talk about is gentrification. I'll turn the floor over to Megan and let her lead us into this talk right here.
Okay. So the first topic we want to discuss is gentrification, and the definition of gentrification is the process of neighborhood change in historically disinvested, low income, and neighborhoods of color. And this is done through increased investment in the area, typically to make way for higher income residents and businesses. And this results in the displacement of lower income residents. Mm-hmm. So is everyone good with the definition? And then we can get into the questions. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. So the first question is, we'll have like 3 or 4 people share about how they see gentrification and maybe define gentrification based off their experiences.
Megan, before, you might have to say that again, but I want to give context to this part of the community dialogue. So gentrification is one of the issues that the Equity Advisory Committee deem is an issue in Chestertown. I have 2 council members here. I don't want to put it on the town feeling that way, but I would definitely let them to elaborate after I'm finished about that. So we feel, and right now, look, I'm taking off the BlackUnion hat and I just put on my Equity Advisory Chairman hat. We feel as a committee that gentrification has to be addressed for several reasons: the systemic level, and then also the effects it has on affordable housing, transportation, taxation, business loans, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're doing is, the reason the Washington College student body is here is to start helping us with some of the solutions. So often, correct me if I'm wrong, students, Students feel like they're not a part of our community. And as a community leader, I feel like it's my job to make you a part of the community if you're willing and wanting to be a part of that. Now, some students are just going to come, do their 4 years, get their education, go back home. But some people are actually here who want to be more social, who want to be more engaged. So in order to do that, you have to be not invited to the community, but